hear you, but I can't see you.
Okay, so we're starting the last class of Women in Tanach 3. This is the 30th class about Yael. So we're getting ready now to start, and I hope you all have your handouts. So I call her Yael, more blessed than women of the tent. Tevorach minashim Yael. So first of all, it's really interesting that there's many stories, many redemption stories take place by means of teamwork of righteous women. Like we know that Rachel and Leah worked together to raise the holy tribes of Israel. Also the Hebrew midwives, Miriam and Yocheved, that feared God but didn't fear Pharaoh. They basically were the midwives of the exodus from Egypt. And Ruth and Naomi worked in perfect teamwork to bring about the birth of David, and in that way ensure the messianic lineage. So I'm just gonna mute a little bit. Oops, forget now. You see, it's highly needed. But we're managed participants. Here we go. Yes. Okay. So, and now in the story about Yael, we see that really it was Devorah and Yael that worked in a team together to overcome that terrorizing Philistine enemy during the time of Judges. Basically, Yael completed the work that Devorah began. As we see in the Torah in chapter 4, verse 17 to 23, and I'd like you to open in the Tanach to those verses, and that's basically where we see the story of what happened, what Yael did. And I'd like to just read it. Maybe I'll just read it in English. Or is there one of you, we can unmute you, who would like to read that? You have it in front of you, the Tanakh? You have it, Terry? You want to read it? Chapter 4, verse 17 to 23.
I don't have it yet. I have to find it. Chapter 4, verse 17?
That's correct.
Okay. All right. He presented the tribute to
No.
Nope, that's not it. Nope, that's 3. Sorry. Sisera, meanwhile?
Yes.
Okay. Sisera, meanwhile, had fled on foot to the tent of Yael, wife of Heber the Kenite, for there was friendship between King Jabin of Hazor and the family of Heber the Kenite. Yael came out to greet Sisera and said to him, "Come in, my lord, come in here, do not be afraid." So he entered her tent and she covered him with a blanket. He said to her, "Please let me have some water, I am thirsty." She opened a skin of milk and gave him some to drink, and she covered him again. He said to her, "Stand at the entrance of the tent. If anybody comes and asks you if there is anybody here, say no." Then Yael, wife of Heber, took a tent pin and grasped the mallet. When he was fast asleep from exhaustion, she approached him stealthily and drove the pin through his temple till it went down to the ground. Thus he died. How far am I reading? Do I keep going?
I think 23. I think maybe that was it.
Okay. Now Barak appeared in pursuit of Sisera. Yael went out
I think, did you do 23?
No, I haven't done 23 yet.
Okay, so then it's a little bit more, yeah.
Okay. Yael went out to greet him and said, "Come, I will show you the man you are looking for." He went inside with her, and there Sisera was lying dead with the pin in his temple. On that day, God subdued King Jabin of Canaan before the Israelites. That's it.
Right, so that's a pretty harsh story. That's basically the story of Yael. What is going on here? A few things. So Yael is she's a direct descendant of Yitro from the Kenites. And Yitro was also a Kenite. I mean, the descendants of Yitro is called the Kenites. And she was the wife of Hever. And Hever was a person who was friendly both with Israel and with the Philistines, with the Canaanites. And Yavin is the king of of one of the areas of Canaan, and Sisera is his general, Sisera. So basically, Yael tempted Sisera to come into her tent, made him feel safe, gave him milk until he fell asleep, covered him with a blanket, and then she took the tent peg and she killed him. And after that, Yael went out to Barak and showed him that she had killed Sisera. And because of that, Hashem subdued Yavin, the king of Canaan, before the children of Israel, basically because that general was killed in this way. That was unexpected, and he wasn't yet weakened. He was trying to go into Yael's tent to gain a little strength to go on a new attack. It wasn't like expected that he was going to be defeated. So it was a big step that ended the war, and Israel had peace from the Canaanite, and they won the war because of Yael, because she killed Sisera. Okay, is this all clear, everybody? Were you with me?
No.
Yes, go ahead.
Am I okay? No, who is Sisera? Is whose general?
Sisera, as far as I understand, is the general of Yavin, and Yavin is the king of Canaan. Sometimes he's called king of Chatzor, but you see in the end he's called king of Canaan.
Okay.
Okay, is it clear, the story? This is what we've been reading in chapter 4, verse 17 to 23 in the book of Shoftim, just to get the simple story. And then we're going to go in depth according to topics like our general style. But first I want you to all see what the Tanach is describing here in a simple meaning. Everybody's with me, yes?
Mm-hmm.
Not?
Yeah.
Okay, so now we go on to this was the introduction, and now we go on to the first topic, which is called Yael HaKenit, the Canaanite, to understand who it was. And so, so basically, I did explain some of it already, but it's explained in the commentaries that the Canaanites, they were faithful to the covenant of Israel. But at the same time, they avoided coming into battle with the Canaanites who surrounded them. They were kind of neutral zone. Rabbi Yael says Yitzhak, who converted, took a position and identified with Israel. He endangered himself and his position, and therefore he merited greatness. So his descendants became judges, and Yael is a direct descendant of Yitro. A straight line goes from Yitro to Yael because Yitro accepted into his house a redeemer who escaped his enemy. Who was that? That was Moshe. And from Yitro's house arose a woman, meaning from among Yitro's descendants, who received an enemy who escaped from the redeemer, and she killed him. And this was Sisera. Okay, so now we're getting up to text number 1. So let's see, I'm going to unmute all and see if we get another reader. Because now, Baruch Hashem, a few more people came. Thank you so much. Who would like to read text number 1? Sylvia.
I can read text number 1.
Yes, please.
Cheva, the Kenite, was separated from Cain of the sons of Hovav, Moshe's father-in-law, who dwelled in the Judean desert.
Stop, I'm sorry. Yitro had many names, and one of his names was Chovav. Okay, so Chaver was one of the descendants of Moshe's father-in-law, Chovav, which is Yitro. But he...
Oh, right. Right. Okay, and let's see where we left
Continue.
off. Havar had the custom of the rest of the sons of Hovav to keep the religion of Israel. Therefore, Yael exerted herself to kill Sisera. However, there was peace between Havar the Kenite and Sisera, although there was war between Sisera and Israel. Perhaps Havar the Kenite was subjugated under Yavin, the king of Canaan, or they had good relations for another reason.
Okay, so we see that basically they kept, it's interesting, they were like Jewish, but they were not, they were like in between Jewish and not Jewish, because it says, Chava had the custom of the rest of the sons of Chovav to keep the religion of Israel. This is interesting, because also they, in different places, they say that Yael is a convert. So it's not so clear. It seems like kind of like an in-between people, maybe like the Drusim or something like that, but a little bit more keeping of the Torah than the Drusim, but some kind of in-between people. Okay, and now it says in text number 2 from the Malbim that even though Chava the Canaanite, he was part of the Canaanite, but he moved to like a different place. He was not in the Judean desert. Okay, don't ask me the geography, but this is taking place in a different place. The Judean desert, that's much more south of where they were. And so it was from Hashem that Chava moved to a different place because so he was going to be ready for the day of salvation to fulfill what Devorah had prophesied in chapter 4, verse 9 of Shoftim. Hashem will give Sisera over into the hand of a woman. So that's why Hashem made it that he moved. Does anyone know where this war took place? Okay, I'm gonna, go ahead.
Mount Ephraim?
Yeah, where was this whole war? We have to go back to the whole beginning of the book of Shoftim to just see exactly where it was. I'm not so good with all that, but what is interesting is that it says he had separated Chava, that includes his wife, Yael, so they lived in a different place than the rest of the Canaan. But I think it's like Har Tabor, we see that in verse 12, which is like more in the north. Okay, and unless somebody wants to.
Oh, great.
You know where Har Tabor is?
Sorry, isn't that where they ski? No, that's Mount Hermon.
No.
Sorry, wrong one.
No, I can look it up for a second if it's important for you. Mount Tabor. Let's see.
It's near.
It's in the lower Galilee region of northern Israel. Okay, so
Yep.
it's far away from the Judean desert. That's the point. Like I said. Okay, so now we go on. Okay, so it's interesting that it says in a verse in chapter 5, verse 6, in the Song of Devorah, then it says, if you have the book in front of you and you could follow, then it says, in the days of Shamgar, the son of Anat, in the days of Yael, the highway ceased, and the travelers walked through crooked byways. So this is part of the Devorah song, but what we are focusing on, as it calls it, in the day of Yael. So, and both in the days of Shamgar and in the days of Yael. What does that teach us about Yael's status? It teaches us.
Must have been pretty important if they cite her as in the days of.
Exactly. So there were two important people. Shamgar was the Redeemer in the south, and Yael was the central personality in the north. I hear it says exactly what I didn't have to look up before. The house of Chaver, the Kenny, apparently occupied an important place in the Galilee, like we just learned that Har Tabor was in the northern Galilee before the war. And Yael was the head of the family, not Chaver, but Yael, because it didn't say in the days of Chaver, but it says in the day of Yael. She was very influential. So that's why this time is called in her name, like in the days of Yael. Okay, so, and now we see what does Rashi say. What does it mean that the hive, this is text number 3, that the hive ceased? What it means here is that, oops, okay, I'm gonna just go back. What it means here is that, according to Rashi in text number 3, that Israel was afraid to go out on the highways because it was dangerous, basically. There were terrorists, there were enemies, so they would walk around in hidden bypass roads. That was until Yael came and killed Sisera, and then people could go again. Where they could feel safe in any place of Israel. They didn't have to be afraid. So that's Metzudas. David also says that before the victory, there was not a complete salvation. There was a lot of idol worshippers who were not afraid from God, and people were not going to pilgrimage. They were not going to the Mishkan because they were afraid of idol worshippers. But when it came to the reason that it mentioned Yael, says Radak, is because she brought the salvation. And so that she was a really important woman who loved God. And although she was so important, nevertheless, she did not begin the salvation until Devorah rose. Like what Devorah says, until I rose among Israel. That's how the continuation of that verse. So they worked together, as we said. Yael completed the work that Devorah begun. Okay, so here we're going to see an interesting text number 4, very traditional. So I'm going to ask, let's see, I'm going to ask Esther Saad to read us text number 4.
Okay, text number 4.
Yes.
What is the nature of Yael that such great salvation came about through her? They said she was a kosher wife who did the will of her husband. From here, they said, you don't have a kosher woman among women except a woman who performs her husband's will. And that's from Yahud Shimoni.
Right, so that's very interesting because this is a famous quote that people quote a lot. Who is a kosher wife? The one who does the will of her husband. And that's what we know about Yael. And that's, we don't know it except by this text, because it seems actually, it's really very interesting, because later you're going to see what, according to commentary, she did with Sisera, and those actions are not necessarily what most husbands would want their wife to do. And you can guess what I'm looking at. And still, the Midrash says that she's the woman, a kosher woman who performs the will of her husband. So it shows that perhaps specifically because she's always a kosher woman that performs the will of her husband, she's able to make an exception for the sake of saving Israel. But other than if it wasn't that she was always a kosher wife fulfilling her husband's will, then she wouldn't be the one chosen for the job that she got to do to save Israel. So now we're moving to the next topic, the topic of more blessed than women of the tent. Does anyone have any comment or question before we move to that topic?
There's a question on the group chat.
Oh, okay. Okay, let me see. Oh, yeah, I see. Thank you. Very not modern feminism. What is not modern feminism?
That statement just said, and initially the bald statement, you don't have a kosher woman among women except a woman who performs her husband's will, just without looking any further than the simple meaning, sounds like, you're submissive, you don't have a voice, that kind of thing. You do what your husband wants you to do and tells you to do. But I'm sure there must be more to it.
Yeah, well, this is coming to complement all the other things we see about Yael. Because it says about Yael, in the days of Yael, it doesn't say in the days of Cheva. So that already shows that she's a leader. She's not as submissive. She is the most important public figure amongst the two. So then it comes to balance that off, actually. And some other things that we're going to learn as well.
Okay.
Okay, so I'm going on to the next topic.
And Terry had a question on the board too.
Oh, let me just see here.
I can just ask it. I can
Go
ask
ahead.
it.
Go
Are
ahead.
you implying, so when you say she did the will of her husband, is the will something that he asked her to do, or maybe he had been talking about it and he was concerned about Sisera, or is it something that she just intuitively, she was worrying because she knew of this issue and she took it upon herself to do this, and that's considered the will of her husband? Like, is it like protecting her husband considered the will of her husband, or is it a specific, he asked her to do it?
Right, so we don't know any of that because it certainly does not say in the Tanach that he asked her to do anything. Like he's a complete passive figure in the whole story. He's only mentioned as her husband. He's not mentioned as doing or saying anything. So we have to just guess. And I tend to guess that the latter is more likely, since specifically we didn't see that he said anything. That's more likely that she knew what he would want her to do. And so,
Yeah, so I wonder why they call that the will of her husband, because it just doesn't,
I
it just
think
seems
that
like
it is
more
to
it's her
show us.
will to take care of, her
I
family.
think it is to show us that even though she's the leader, she's the one who acts. She's the one who's mentioned as in the days of Yael. And you may think that she's completely disconnected from her husband. And it comes to tell us, nevertheless, they worked as a team. Like her husband was behind her. Like she had her husband's support for whatever she did. Even though she was very unconventional, non-conformist, non-submissive woman, she still had that element of being in tune with her husband's will. And I think that's really important. You have to see that statement in context. Yes. Yes, Sylvia.
Yeah, maybe, when it says performed her husband's will, it's like he had the will, but she actually performed it.
Yes.
She took action.
Yeah, so you could say it both ways, that it's his will, but she's the actor here. Usually it's the man that's the outgoing and the woman that's behind him. But here it's opposite in terms of what you read in the text. But the Midrash comes to say something kind of surprising that doesn't really appear in the text as far as I can see at all. And so I would say that from that Midrash, they're in tune with each other. They work as a team. Whoever is supporting the other, it's hard to say. But she does what he wants. Okay, so I'm moving to more blessed than women of the tent. And so we can now compare in text number 5, both Yael, it's written about her, V'tzetzeh, she went out, and also an earlier story about Dina, the daughter of Yaakov. It says that she went out. In the case of Dina, what was the result? Yes, not the rapist. She got raped.
She was violated, wasn't she?
Yeah, exactly. So what's the difference between Yael's and Dina's going out? That's what we're going to discuss now. Even though Dina also really went out for really good reason, because if you remember what we learned, those of you who learned that with me, she went to see the insides of the hearts of the daughters of the land to help see if there was some that have a hidden spark. So she had a really good intention too. But Yael's going out for the sake of saving the Jewish people. And that's an even pikuach nefesh, to save someone from being killed, overrides everything. And therefore, nothing bad happened to Yael from going out, because she went out to save the Jewish people. Okay, so why did she give Sisera milk instead of water? So, as we know, milk makes the body heavy and sleeping, as Rashi say. And she covered Sisera with a blanket and gave him milk. Also, this is really interesting. I don't know who says that, but in order to become like the mother of the holy sparks trapped within him. We talked a lot about this in the class, that when a person, any person that's alive is alive because they have some kind of divine sparks in them that's keeping them alive. And so did Sisera have that. As soon as Yael removed those holy sparks by giving him milk, like in order that she could be like a mother and birth his holy sparks, and then cover him with a blanket like a mother, as soon as she had withdrawn his sparks of holiness, he was bereft of life. Spiritually, he has no more reason to exist, because all is left is klipa of him, like shell. And so, is that clear with everybody? This is like a Kabbalistic concept, yeah? And so, kind of. Okay, you're all muted, so you can just nod. That's all you can do. Okay, so now I'm going back to chapter 5, verse 24. That's where Devorah sings about Yael and calls her blessed. Tevorach minashim Yael eshet chever hakeni minashim be'ohel tevorach. Blessed above or of women shall Yael, the wife of Chever the Kenite, be. Above or of women in the tent shall she be blessed. Now it's interesting, every time it mentions Yael, it mentions that she's the wife of Keni. It repeats that many times. I'm just thinking, it's just the thought that comes to me now as I'm teaching you, that perhaps the reason why, how they learned out in the Midrash that she, in the Yalkut Shimoni, who I think it was text number 4, who's a kosher wife, the one who does the will of her husband, that there was Yael. Perhaps they learn it out because it's hard to find any kind of textual, even allusions to that. But from the fact that it repeats so many times, wife of Chava, it's extra. We know that. We don't have to hear it again and again and again to teach us, like, it's important for her to be wife of Chava, to do what her husband wants. So I think that is the hint or the allusion to that she is a kosher wife that performs the will of her husband. So why did she go out of the tent? So in a way, a tent symbolizes or represents modesty, right? We know that about Sarah, when the angels wanted to endear her to Abraham and bring to his attention how modest Sarah is. They asked where she was, and so that he could answer, behold, in the tent. And Rashi says she's modest. That's what it means to be in the tent. So the tent represents modesty. Going out of the tent, that she went out to call Sisera, represents going out of her modesty, but for the sake of Israel. She paid a very heavy price to volunteer to kill Sisera. Sisera escaped after a downfall, but he wasn't defeated, he wasn't beaten, he wasn't without hope. He gave her instructions as someone whose strength is still in his hips when he asked for a drink, etc. And so he was just getting ready to gather new strength for another battle. And so that's what I mentioned before in any case. But Yael's way was not completely straight and pure. But it was impossible to win the battle against this evil person by pure means alone. It's impossible to overcome the chief captain of Canaan with only a cup of milk. So we're going to see what she actually did in text number 6. So let's see if we have a reader. Maybe I see that Judy Josephs is here now. Do you want to read text number 6 for us, Judy? Are you able to? No? So, Yehudit?
Yes, I can.
Oh, you can? Go ahead.
Just 2 seconds.
Text number 6. Oh, it's so good to hear your voice.
Said, behold, in the tent, it states, blessed above women shall Yael, the wife of Heber,
Yes.
Kenet, be. Above women in the tent shall she be blessed. Rabbi Eliezer said, Rabbi Eliezer said, more than the women of the wilderness who dwelled in tents, as it states, a man according to the opening of his tent. Why would she be more blessed than them? They gave birth and established the world. Yet what would it have helped them if it were not for her? They would all have been destroyed. Rabbi Shmuel ben Nachman said, more than the mothers, they gave birth, etc. If it was not for her, they would have all been destroyed.
Very good. So you see there are two opinions in text number 6. Who are the women in the tent? One is Rabbi Eliezer. What does Rabbi Eliezer says? Who are the women in the tent? Those are the women in the wilderness, the women in the desert. Because it says, a man according to the opening of the tent, talk about the people in the wilderness. So they're called the people of the tent. So, and the other opinion about from Rabbi what's his name? Rabbi Shmuel ben Nachman is that it was the mothers. It was meaning Sarah, Rivka, Rachel, and Leah. So both of them, Yael complete, whatever, whether it's the women of the wilderness or the women, the first mothers that are called the women of the tent, all the work that they did would have been lost if Yael didn't come and kill Sisera, because Sisera would have finished off, God forbid, all the Jewish people. And so their work would have been undone. There would be no more Jewish people, everything they worked so hard for. And so that's why Devorah calls Yael more blessed than women in the tent. Okay, so Rashi says it's specifically, when it's talking about women in the tent, it is the mothers, like Sarah, it says about her, where is she? Behold, in the tent. Rivka, it says about her, and Yitzchak brought her into the tent. Rachel and Leah, it says about them, and he left Leah's tent, and he went into Rachel's tent, etc. So each of those, Sarah, Rivka, Rachel, and Leah, it mentions specifically the tent about them. And, okay. So now, there's another way to understand it, and that's why I have in the translation, when I read the pasuk for you in Shoftim 5:25, I read, blessed above women, shall Yael be blessed above women in the tent, or blessed of women. There's another opinion that Mitzudas David brings, that she's blessed from the mouth of the women. In other words, of the women. The women of the tent are blessing Yael. Like from wherever they're sitting in the Garden of Eden, they're blessing Yael. Thank you, Yael, for the good work that you do to continue what we started. So it's either she's blessed more than them, or she's blessed by them, or of them. Okay. So also, it was a very big thing that she was, in Hebrew, there's a word that's called zrizah. It doesn't really translate. It means like really active and excited to serve God in the place where she was. And so now, Be'er Maim Chaim says something that I really like, because, you know, there is the women of the tent, that's the modesty, and then there's Yael, who went out of her tent. And what Devorah is saying is to teach us that even though she went out of her tent, she achieved a greater blessing than the women who stayed in the tent. Basically, even though the women of the tent, like Sarah, Rivka, Rachel, and Leah, they stayed in the tent for the most part. For example, about Sarah, it says she converted women in her tent. You know, but the women came to her into her tent. She didn't go out from her tent to look for women like Dina did, and Dina got into trouble. She stayed in her tent and waited for the women to come to her. But basically, sometimes there is a special exception when a woman has to go out of her modesty. When is that? Only when it is imperative to do so in order to save the Jewish people. And that was the case of Yael. And I'd like us to read text number 7, who has not yet read. Sylvia has not yet read, as far as I know. Is that correct? Yes. 7. Loud.
It seems that when Devorah praised Yael and called her more blessed than women of the tent, Chazal asked, "Who are the women of the tent?" They are Sarah, Rivka, Rachel, and Leah. What is her virtue in this over the 4 mothers? Because she went towards Sisera, as it states, Yael went out. Shoftim. Although she went out, she did it in perfection, and her going out did not harm her at all. Therefore, she is more blessed than the women whose righteousness was only in the tent and not outside. Yet, her going out was imperative to save the Jewish people. For this reason, her going out did not have any bad effect on her. On the contrary, it benefited the house of the king and is considered as within. This is not so with Dina, who wanted to teach the daughters of the uncircumcised. Chazal said, it is forbidden for a Talmid Chacham to transgress a tiny prohibition so that the masses shouldn't come to transgress a serious prohibition. Also, in this case, Hashem didn't want Dina to transgress a small transgression for their sake because the environment is very stormy. Therefore, he saw her, etc.
Okay, so so this is like a really deep text. There's a lot in it. Okay, so basically, what does it mean? I just want to make sure that it is clear. When she went out of her tent, it didn't harm her. She didn't get violated like Dina. And basically, there is a way to be able to go out of the tent, going out of the modesty, and still remain within. And that depends very much on the intention. It did not have a bad effect on her that she went out because she went out to save the Jewish people. And so it's, even though it says all the honor of the king's daughter is within, when her going out, it's for the sake of the king's, it's for the sake of the house of the king. So it's considered as if she's still within. But then with Dina, it's a little bit different. And then he says, in general, someone that's a really great person, like a Talmid Chacham, like a Torah scholar, shouldn't transgress even a small thing, because then other, the people will learn from it and they'll come to do something more serious transgression. And that's why Hashem made it happen to Dina, that she was violated, to teach that lesson. So basically, Yael did something more daring, difficult, and dangerous than the mother. But she was able to have the same results as them, to build the Jewish people. The mothers can be compared to those who abstain from drinking from the bottle. Yael stayed sober, although she drank from the bottle. That's kind of like a metaphor. Like, she didn't drink from the bottle. She was, but sometimes it's harder to stay, pure when you do something that's much more scary and much more out of the box. So what could be some of the legitimate reasons for leaving the tent? And if anyone has any things to share about our time, in which way could it be legitimate to leave the tent?
I had a question.
Yes, go ahead.
What did Dina do? What was forbidden that she did? I mean, what was the transgression? What was the tiny transgression?
It was not really a transgression, but she went out, and she shouldn't have gone out.
She went out for the wrong reasons?
No, but she didn't go out for as uplifted reason as Yael did.
Okay.
Like, she went out for good reasons, but she didn't, but like Yael's reasons were more, were to save the Jewish people, that's pikuach nefesh. There's no reason as important as that. And she did go out for good reasons, but still, it wasn't good enough. It wasn't, she still was harmed because they want to teach a lesson that how careful you have to be from going out of what is acceptable for the Jewish people. Like, you know, it was not considered modest in her time that she went out, you know, a woman by herself. And so we have to think about how that applies to our time, how we can compare it to that, and when would be a good, what would be today, what could be like compatible to what we're reading about Yael and Dina. So if anyone has anything, so please do feel.
I have something.
Yeah, go ahead, Sherry.
So I was I had to look this back up because I thought when I read that first text, I thought that Sisera came to her. So I was wondering where Dina went out, where Yael went out. So I went back and looked, and it said Sisera came to her tent, but she went out to greet him and invited him in. So there's a difference in Yael. Yael, she was receiving something, as opposed to Dina, who was actually going like to the tents of the other women. She was leaving her tent by her own accord. It wasn't like somebody was coming to her tent and saying, let's go, right? She went out with the intention of helping other people. Or
so Yael was responding to Sisera, who already was like going in her direction.
Yes, he came to her. It says he came to her tent.
It's right. But Sisera fled to the foot of the tent of Yael.
Mm-hmm.
And then she went out like to the opening, come in, come in, come in. But she didn't go completely out. That's a good point. You know, it's very interesting. Like,
so you don't know. Like, I think of it like somebody, did he come knock on her door? Did she just see him walking by? If she hadn't stepped out and greeted him, would he have just kept going to the next? Like, how does, you know?
It does seem to say that he specifically was targeting her tent.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
Because she was like very forthcoming, so, you know, she didn't have to be, because he was going to come anyway to her tent, you know.
Right.
So
that's the difference.
Yeah, so in one way you could say, well, she was more tznius than Dina because she didn't leave her tent altogether. She just stepped out like one step to the opening. But the other hand, you could say, well, she was less tznius because why do you have to be so forthcoming? Let him, he's going anyway to your tent, so just wait till he comes in all the way. Whereas Dina, if she wanted to convert those girls, they weren't going to come to her. She would have to go out. So you could look at it in both ways. So now I'd like you to do this creative expression, the tents of my life. Okay, so I'm going to read the exercise, and if it's not clear, you can ask me. Reaching beyond the tent in order to protect the tent. Okay, so keep in mind the tent represents modesty, like your enclosure. Leaving the tent in order to safeguard it. Identify the tents of your life, and through creative writing, complete the following 2 sentences. I need my tent because, and write that down and then make a space in your paper. I need my tent because, leave like the whole page empty so you can fill in. And then on the other side of the paper, write, I need to leave my tent when. And then I want to give you just a few moments to fill that in. Okay, I'm just giving you a few more minutes. Okay. So you're almost ready? Okay. Okay, so I'm going to, we don't have a lot of time, so I'm going to tell you to finish your sentence that you're in the middle of now. And then after that, we will end the exercise. And you can continue it on your own as well. Okay. בסדר? Okay, so is there anyone who would like to share what you wrote? Anyone? Terry, you want to? You're smiling.
I can. I don't necessarily want to, but I can share it. This is something that I've actually been thinking about because you made a comment in one of our other classes, and I don't remember who the person is, about how it was her fault when men are interested in you or come toward you or all that kind of stuff. We were talking about that last week.
Devorah.
Devorah, that's what I was thinking.
The
And
body
so,
image.
and so I need my tent because I feel safe and protected in my tent with my studies and all the things I do. It keeps me safe and I feel comfortable here. But when I need to leave my tent, it's usually because somebody calls me or texts me or contacts me with a question, and well, it's all kinds of, it's men and women, but I often wonder, like, when it's a man, I often wonder, well, what am I supposed to do? Am I supposed to just ignore it? Am I supposed to respond? So I respond for the sake of peace, keeping peace, but it's just something that's interesting to think about. So I'm looking at that in terms of leaving my tent. When I go out of my comfort zone, what are the intentions? Why am I doing it?
Mm-hmm. Like, what's the purpose of engaging in a chat with a man?
Right.
Okay, so I can answer how I feel about it if you want.
Right.
I don't know if you maybe.
Yeah, sure. I would love to hear.
Okay, so this is what I tell my students always. Not everyone will agree with this, but I believe that this is the Torah way. To engage with a man in any kind of discussion, in any kind of communication of any way, whether it's written or oral or phone or, electronic, whatever it is, for two reasons. Just basically, well, one is to find out, like, if you're not married, to find your true marriage partner for the sake of checking out if he's your true marriage partner. And if you are married, or this applies to both married and unmarried, is for the sake of, it's like a business connection, basically. It's for business. It's either, a business, or in some way, it's not a personal connection. It's not your family, something like that. That's what it should be, because you don't want to you certainly don't want a man to do a favor for you. Okay, a man that's not your family and that's you're not interested in, you know for sure you're not interested in marrying. We see that over and over and over, because women often need a favor from a man to carry something heavy or to drop something by or to give a ride or whatever it is. I see that over and over. And each and every single time that I've seen women in receiving favors from a man like that, very innocently, the man is expecting something back that the woman doesn't want to give, that she didn't have in mind to give at all. And all of a sudden she's entrapped in this whole thing. It happens a lot.
I'm not talking about favors or anything like that. I'm just talking about people like sending a text just saying hi. How, like, for me, I sense that people reach out just because they're needing connection, and rather than connecting, that they don't connect themselves with Hashem in a way that makes them feel safe and secure. Whatever it is, they feel lonely, whatever it is, they're just reaching out because they want connection.
I understand that, but I'm trying to say that such a connection is not appropriate for a man and a woman. I know it's very different in the secular world. You know,
Yeah.
in the non-Jewish world, it's very, very different. But in the Torah world, that's what I believe is Hashem's will. It gets very messy with this connection. You get very confused. You don't know what he wants from you. What, you know.
Well, let's take it away from a man. What if it's a woman? What if a woman is connecting with you, but it's not somebody that you really want to be friends with? Then what, you know, do you leave your tent? How do you respond? You know?
You can be kind, you know, to a woman, but start to be kind to a man, that could be dangerous. If it's not someone in your family. I'm not talking about like only the immediate family, like, you know, if it's your nephew or, you know, like your cousin or something, it's still your extended family. That's different, in my opinion.
Okay. So does this relate to the 10th question? Did I
Yes,
go off?
excellent. No, it's very good, because we want to take it into our lives.
Okay.
You know, and I think that is excellent. Like, where's the boundary of my tent when it comes to, you know, communicating with men in different ways? I think that's excellent. You know, I could say for my experience, like a different example, when I go on my big tours, I'm going certainly out of my tent. And that's hard for many reasons, but I try to, you know, also be very, very, very careful, because then I'm going to be a lot of men. And let's say if once I actually raised a lot of money from a man, but this is purely business. You see, like I would, you know, if I wasn't careful, I go out on my tours and there are all the places men, you know, it's easy to, even if nothing physical happened, to exchange energy in a way that's not appropriate. And so it's very easy if you're not careful. You know, even, even I can fall in that myself. You know, just the other day, I went into the store to buy some plants. And then there was a guy who said, "Do you want some grapes?" The owner of the store. And then I got into a whole discussion with him about maaser and the grapes and the whole thing. And
Teaching. You were teaching.
Yes, right. Oh, we can hear you good, Julie. Yeah, so that's what I was saying. I need to teach the mitzvah of maaser. I just taught it on Shabbat in this retreat, and I feel very confident. You're supposed to take maaser and the whole thing. But then I realized, and he kept joking with me. Like he made like fun and joking, and then I realized it was going into a place where it wasn't appropriate. You know, like I was thinking teaching exactly like that, but already I felt, wow, this wasn't appropriate. Like nothing happened, you know, like it's just like he's joking with me, and I'm a married woman.
Yeah, but they're treating it differently. I think some of that is today. I know for me, I feel much more confident staying in my apartment, isolating for several reasons. I don't hear gossip.
Yeah, that's very important.
And to organize my own thoughts, as well as to study. And basically here, when I go out, it's either to assist somebody in, using my medical knowledge, or to be supportive of the shul, or to try and do teaching. I try and act as a role model. Otherwise, I just, stay behind the scenes.
I think that's beautiful. And that's like a really good reason to go out of the tent. Like, we should have reasons. We shouldn't just go out just to go out. Like, I went out to buy something, to buy a plant, to buy some new flowers because the ones I bought before died. So there was a purpose.
You're not good with plants at all.
What?
I'm not good at plants at all. This, I'm just going to show you. This is the longest that I have been able to keep a plant alive.
Oh, this looks beautiful. Plianara, very beautiful. Okay, so now I'm going back because we have only 15 minutes and we have a few more topics to cover. So anyway, it says in text number 8, Rachav reincarnated into Chaver the Canaanite. Remember we learned about Rachav,
right?
The prostitute who married Yoshua. So she became Chaver the Canaanite, and afterwards she became Chana. And Eli, who is the father of Shmuel. No, not the father of Shmuel. Eli, the high priest, the Kohen Gadol at the time of Shmuel. He was the reincarnation of Yael, the wife of Chava the Canaanite. And that's why it states more blessed than women in a tent. She was blessed more than the rest of the women because she became a Kohen Gadol in her next, that's a man that serves the tent. It's called a tent in Shiloh. Excuse me. The Mishkan, the tabernacle, is a tent. So she's a blessed more than the women of the tent because she became the Kohen Gadol, the one Kohen Gadol to serve in a tent to connect the Jewish people to Hashem in her reincarnation as Eli the Kohen. So I just thought that was interesting. So that's why Eli and Chana, they had a conversation talking about men and women have a conversation. They had a deep conversation where Eli thought Chana was drunk, and in the end he gave her a blessing, and then she had a child. So that was a reason to, she went out of her tent and went into the public to cry out to Hashem, and in the end she had a child. And the interchange between Eli and Chana is interesting because they were husband and wife in pre-reincarnation, but not in this reincarnation. That's why you have to be still very careful. Now, I'm going to the next topic. My name is here, Shmi Ko. So what's going on? So if you look at chapter 5, verse 27, it's part of Devorah's song. It says like that. At her feet, he sank. He fell, he lay. At her feet he sank, fell, and fell. Where he sank, there he fell down dead. So a lot of repetition. It says fell. It says fell like 3 times. Altogether, how many times does it say that he either fell or sank or lay? Altogether, how many times is it all together? In verse 27 of chapter
6 times it looks like.
Okay, let me.
3 fell and 3 knelt.
I think it's 7. It's supposed to be 7. Let's see. Okay, let's see if I got it right. I just highlighted them in my notes. 1, 2.
7.
Sank, fell, lay. That's 3.
Oh,
Sank,
and
that's
lay 2?
4.
Okay, makes it 7 then.
4. It fell. That's 5. Sank, and then again there he fell. Altogether 7. You see it?
7. I didn't count lay, but yes, it would be 7.
Okay, so from here they learned something a bit, juicy. They learned that he had intercourse with her 7 times. Okay, and that is what it says in Ein Yaakov from the commentary, on the Talmud, and the reason 7 times is that she let him have intercourse with her 7 times in order to weaken the 7 forces of the impurity of the snake It's known that there's like a 7-headed snake, or there's 7 forces of impurity of the snake, and that's also why Jacob bowed down to Esau 7 times to neutralize Esau's snake, and in the end, he could come close to his brother, to Esau. So basically, so how can that be a blessed thing? Okay, it seems like almost like adultery. It seems like really adultery. So what's going on here? Okay, so this is a bit difficult, but so they go into a big discussion about something that's called Avera Lishma, a sin for the sake of heaven. A sin for the sake of heaven is something nobody can do today. Okay, so don't think I'm teaching you to do a sin for the sake of heaven, but because it has to be completely for the sake of heaven. You can't be like, today everything is mixed. We may have good intentions, but we have like a mix of good and less good intentions, and nobody today can do a sin completely 100% for the sake of heaven, but Yael could. How do we know that? How do we know that she didn't have some kind of personal enjoyment from it? We know it from text number 9. Who did not read yet can get to read text number 9. I think Judy Atkins, go ahead.
There were 3 who escaped sin, and Hashem joined his name to them. They were Yosef, Yael, and Pilti. Yosef, Palti. As it says, as a testimony for Yosef, he ordained it. The extra yud and hey testifies that he did not touch Potiphar's wife.
Stop. So I'm just going to explain. So there's a pasuk in Tehillim that calls Yosef Yehosef with an extra hey and with an extra yud. And so, wait a minute, an extra yud. Let me just see in the Hebrew just a second. It says, Edut Yehosef. No, it's an extra vav, really. It's, I made a mistake. No, what is extra? There's a hey. Oh, no, it is an extra yud. But Yehosef, there's a yud here. But it also, Yosef. It's only really an extra hey. That's the truth. Okay, the extra hey, but that's enough. That extra hey stands for Hashem. So it testified, that's like a testimony that he did not touch Potiphar's wife. Hashem's name is written inside of his name, like the hey, the extra hey is hinting to that, okay? So now, I'm sorry I wrote it wrong in the text and I have to fix it because it's really only an extra hey. You look, and am I right? Tell me, is it true what I'm saying when you compare Yehosef to Yosef?
What line is it on? And the Hebrew? I can't find it.
It's on line 2. Yehosef Shemo, Mahu be Yehosef.
Hey, Rabbanit, it's only a hey.
Ah, thank you.
It's only a hey, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yes. Okay. Just I'm just fixing it up in the handout for next time. I made a mistake. Okay. Continue to read.
Okay. Yael, as it states, Yael went out to meet Sisera. She covered him with a blanket. That's Softim 4:18. What is shmicha?
Shmicha is the word that means blanket.
Okay. The rabbis of Hakka said with a scarf, a colored garment, while the rabbis of Yemen said with a sort of cloak, a garment completely of silk. Reish Lachish said, we have read the entire scripture and have not found anything called a smicha. What is its meaning? Simiko, my name testifies.
Stop. So the word smicha, which means also in modern Hebrew a blanket, a smicha, it could be broken down to 2 words. Shemi, which means my name, and it's talking about Hashem's name. Ko, which means here. I'm fixing that up too. Oh no. because that is a test. That's Hashem's name is there in the story of Yael. He's testifying what? That this wicked my name is here, that this wicked person did not touch her. So that's another opinion really going on, because different from the Gemara that says that she let him have intercourse 7 times. Or it's possible that it's not another opinion, but that it's teaching you, even though he did what he did with her and she allowed him, he still didn't touch her in a true way. Like she was able to dissociate from her body in a way that was what was needed in this case. And so that's what I tend to believe is what it means. Like he did touch her, but he didn't touch her. And then it gives like another example with Palti, who didn't want to touch Shaul because he wasn't sure that Shaul was really divorced. And so it calls him Paltiel. Again, it gives God's name. So there's 3 people where Yael is one of them, that God's name is added into the story. And that is to testify that they didn't do any sin. Okay, so all of them are examples of overcoming sexual temptation. Each 3 of them. Yael, the temptress, did not get the slightest enjoyment from the effect her sexuality had on this wicked man. She allowed, and also Yalkut Shimoni says, she allowed this wicked person to live with her 7 times, again, to purify from the pollution of the serpent, as we said before. And now it says something new. When the snake came on Chava, it injected in her pollution. When Israel stood on Mount Sinai, the pollution was purified, like when they received the Torah. All that pollution that the snake had injected into Chava, the first woman, was purified when we received the Torah. But non-Jews, Gentiles, who didn't stand on Mount Sinai, they weren't purified. So she still had to get rid of the 7 powers of the snake. Now I don't have a lot of time, and I want to go to the next topic with your
This one
permission.
question is shmika, that word related to smicha, for the rabbis?
No, well, yeah, maybe, because it could be that it's written the same way, because it's also like both of them means cover. Smicha that you give to make someone a rabbi is you put your hands on their head, you cover their head with the hands, and a smicha here, she covers him with a blanket. So there is a connection. Yes, thank you. Oops. So now I'm going on because of very little time, and there's 2 more topics. So the next topic is ingrained modesty. And here we see in text number 10 that from the Eshet Chayil, when it says she stretches forth her hand unto the distaff, that is referring to Yael, that she killed him not with his sword, not with his weapon, but with a tent peg. Why did she do that? That's a very difficult
way rather than masculine. A man uses the sword. She's using something that's closer related to feminine. It's not.
Exactly. Very good, because she's using something that's the tent, that's the feminine. And it says, as we see in the end of text number 10, a man's attire shall not be on a woman. So there are those opinions who say, including in man's attire, is his sword, is his weapon. So we see it was such an ingrained modesty in Yael that you don't have even a minute to think about what should I do. It's just like what she instinctively knew how to do was to use that clumsy tool of a tent peg that really is, I can't even personally stick a tent peg into the ground, let alone kill anyone with it. But Yael is not only considered to be equal to the women of the tent, as we said, she's more blessed than them because she preserved what they did. And she did it specifically through that was her ingrained modesty to use the tent peg. And I think you're very right to notice that that's like off the tent. So she fought on several levels. The concept of tzniut was so saturated in her being that even in a situation of mortal danger, she reached out for the tent peg instead of the sword. And that's what it also means. Shmi ko, my name is in this story. And then I wanted to say that it's specifically because Yael, it was the epitome of tzniut, modesty, that she, to the extent that she wouldn't even use his sword, which today there are many rabbis that give permission, heter, for a woman to carry a gun for self-defense in even Haredi places where women take self-defense courses to, carry guns. So it's could be allowed. She's doing more than the letter of the law. It's certainly allowed in the situation she was in of pikuach nefesh, of saving life. Everything is subjugated to that mitzvah. But so what I believe is that because she had such ingrained extra tzniut, more than the letter of the law, she's the one who was able to save Israel through a kind of adultery, even though a person in general should rather give their life than transgressing that. This is an exception because she was able to save the entire nation of Israel through this act. And so when she killed him with a tent peg rather than a sword, in a moment when there was no time to think about anything but just act quickly, it shows like how satiated she was with tzniut in every fiber of her being. And then I also wrote in my notes, similar to what you said, that since the tent peg relates to the tent, it's responsible for upholding the entire tent. That's what the tent peg does. If you take off the tent pegs, the tent falls down. So we could say that what she did, Yael, in her act, she upheld the entire tent of Israel. And that goes together with what we've been learning in the Midrash. If it wasn't for Yael, the work of the women in the tent would have been undone. So that's also what it symbolizes, that she killed him with a tent peg. Even though on the surface, it seems like Yael's act is promiscuous, its inner kernel is completely aligned with the modesty of Sarah's tent. Okay, so now the last, and here is about the shofar. La'alot laHashem k'shofar. So you can actually use a Yael, which is an animal called an ibex in text number 10, for a shofar. And the reason is because it's straight and simple, and prayers must be simple. And so Yael.
Beautiful.
Yes, thank you. And I'm sorry, I just have to do really fast because now it's the end and I have like 2 pages left. Yael is from the word like la'alot, like aliyah. It means to go up, to rise. And she's that mountain goat, an ibex that climbs from the bottom to the top. Yael was a convert who raised herself from a foreign people to unite with Israel. And she was able to extend herself beyond what could be expected of her in order to save Israel and raise them up above their enemy. And so, like the Mishnah, there's an opinion in the Mishnah that the shofar on Rosh Hashanah must be simple and go straight up to God. And so Yael, the word Yael can also mean to be effective, like the word Yael, to be beneficial. And that's what she was. She was able to benefit all of Israel. To be efficient is also to elevate our strengths towards a particular purpose. When we focus our strengths towards kindness, we can become beneficial. And then there's a whole long thing about Sisera's mother's cry, which you have to read on your own in chapter 5, verse 28 to 30. But it's known that in the whole section of her cry, in those verses, there's altogether 100 words. And this is why, wait a minute, I think it's right. The custom became whispered in time to blow a total of 100. That's why we blow 100 shofar sounds. Okay, so, well, the truth is there's one, if I remember right, I don't have it in my notes, but there's the words of Sisera's mother was 101. And I remember correctly, we only blow 100 shofar blows to do a counter cry to the cry of Sisera's mother, because her cry was very evil and not nice, talking about spoil and killing and what she was hoping for with her son. But from all the 101 words, one of the cries was the pure cry of her mother for her son. And that's why we only blow the shofar. We blast it 100 blast and not 101, because there's the one that is holy, that we don't need to do a counter cry for. Okay, so in any case, from Sisera, from this intercourse emerged Rabbi Akiva. Like Rabbi Akiva, who was the son of convert, somehow was connected also to Sisera. And from this intercourse between Sisera and Yael, his soul was able to be released. Okay, so now I just want to end with the last topic, which is Yael completes Devorah's mission. Yael mashlima et shlichut Devorah. So, like we said in the beginning, we want to come full circle that righteous women must work together to bring redemption, like it says in the book of Ruth, like Rachel and Leah, who both built the house of Israel. So Devorah, she called herself a mother in Israel because she brought down the upper waters for Israel to give birth to the spiritual as well as the physical existence. And Yael completed the motherhood of Devorah. Together they gave birth to Israel's redemption, but Yael raised up the hidden sparks from below. Her name means to raise up. All those sparks that's buried deeply within the lowliest place, even within the soul of Sisera, whereas Devorah brought down divine sustenance from above. Yael brought the divine sparks from below, and that's how that's alluded in her name. That means to bring up, and that is also what the shofar is about. We're supposed to raise ourselves up from the depths through the shofar. And this is also that Devorah brought down from above is represented in the fact that she received prophecy from above, from heaven. But Yael raised up a prayer from earth, from below. Devorah remained in one place and people will come to her for judgment. Yael went out towards others, like we saw in text number 5. And that's similar to prayer, which must go outwards. Devorah kept the covenant of sexual purity to its perfection. Although outwardly she had to deal with a multitude of men, Yael outwardly committed an act of adultery, whereas her inner being was not touched the slightest by this wicked man, as the Torah testifies. My name is here, says God, smicha, like the word that means smicha. Redemption is brought about by righteous women working together, just as Devorah and Yael, who completed each other in the most ultimate way. And so I'm going to end with that. And this is the last class. So we're on a little break until I get it together to advertise another course. I have to write all the descriptions of the next 10 women. But stay tuned. You will be informed when I'm ready for that. It will not be until after the holidays. But meanwhile, I do have a course in Kabbalah and spiritual self-healing, which both Sylvia and Ruth Esther are signed up for. That starts this Sunday. So anyone, I'm looking forward to continuing with you. And I think Terry already took that course. And but, you could do a refresher if you just feel like seeing us and learning with us. And if anyone else wants to take the course, hurry up because it's already going to be Thursday soon. And I'm sending out the course material on Friday. So I need to hopefully clean it up as Hashem. So I'm just waiting to see if any last minute registered so I don't have to send it twice. So that starts. So if you want to continue learning with me, I obviously highly recommend. And it's just it's wonderful to get to see you, Judy Josephs, also to see your actual face and engaged and everything. So I really, really enjoyed learning with you. I look forward each time, even though I'm always extremely tired at this time of day when I come to teach you, as you maybe can see. And I was up really, really early and swimming at 6 o'clock, and now I have to go clean the dishes. So I'm signing. So be very well. It was really
fun.
Thank you so much. It was a great series.
Yes.
Real
I look forward to next time.
Baruch Hashem. Baruch Hashem. We had a great thing going on together. And if you want more information about the Emunah Healing course, just email me and I'll send you the link in case you didn't get it already, which I believe you did.
Yeah, I can't do Sundays, just so you know. So that's
Yeah, neither can I.
I understand. Okay.
It's the only day I see my kids.
I understand. That's important. All right, I'm ending the meeting. Litrot.
להתראות.
להתראות.
תודה רבה.
Have a wonderful Elul and Shana Tova.
שנה טובה.
Bye.
ביי.
Bye.